My name is James Houston. I'm a neighborhood change agent, and I've currently been with the Office of Neighborhood Safety for the past 2.5 years.
Name is Sam Vaughn with Office of Neighborhood Safety, and I've been there a little over 8 years.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
You guys have interviewed some pretty extraordinary people.
We're doing that right now.
You're doing it.
Exactly.
Right? Tonight you're doing it. And Byron Pitts, since we talked last, Byron Pitts of ABC Nightline.
Whose piece was terrific.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. I still don't think that anyone has put a piece out there like you guys have.
Oh,
so
we appreciate that.
The Break It Down show does they thing. So,
Yes.
but Byron and Megan and folks there that produced it did a good job. But Byron came and spent some time with us, and he's a great spirited guy. And I asked him, I said, would you let these young men know? Because they don't know who Byron Pitts is. They don't know him from 60 Minutes like we do. Or,
Sure.
And seen the interviews and the people he's interviewed like we have. And so I said, why don't you tell the guys who you are? And he looked at me. I said, they need to know what you've done. And he goes, oh, well, I've interviewed Mandela. I've interviewed Michael Jordan. I've interviewed LeBron James. I've interviewed Kobe. Went through all these sports. And then he said, I've interviewed every president since Carter, Muhammad Ali, and all these foreign folks. And then he said, because he got it. He got where he needed to go.
Uh-huh.
And I'm here this week to interview you. And let me tell you, man, I watched these young men kind of look at each other like,
Yeah.
this dude.
That just happened.
That just happened, right? And again, I want to say to you all, one, thank you for first and foremost giving me the opportunity to come and talk about work that I really believe in, that is really a part of who I am, and what I'm all about. And I believe that it is making a difference, and I believe it's a game changer. And so I'm grateful for you all for giving me a platform to talk about it. But more than anything, and I think I'm probably more excited today for you all and your interest and even your commitment to giving us a platform to share these men and their stories to your audience and to the world. So I really do. I tell you, I can't thank you enough, and I really appreciate you both for that.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. We've had DeVone on the show, and he told us all about the program and how it worked. But what he's doing for us now is that he came and introduced you guys and brought you here so that we could talk directly to change agents who had responsibilities that were specific in the program, and tell us about those responsibilities and about, we can start by talking about the young men. LeVon and Rennell were gracious enough to tell us their stories, because they've been through a lot and did a lot of good work, but their good work was reflective of opportunities that you had helped them see in front of them. So thank you for doing that. Sam, you were there from the beginning?
Right after it started.
Okay. When you began, there was a lot more skepticism about the program.
In all honesty, I don't know if that's true.
Really?
I think folks are still very skeptical. Folks still don't believe in the process, or if they do believe in the process, they don't want that belief to be known because they don't believe that the folks who are in the process deserve the process.
Is this folks in Richmond still?
This is folks in Richmond. This is folks in D.C.
Yeah.
This is folks in Miami. This is folks in Toledo. It's folks in Oakland. It's people across this country. We've had a lot of media. Most of it has horrible titles, and
Yes.
I get it. Just try to get catchy, try to get folks interested, want to get them to read. And some of it was, good reporting. Some of it was very fair reporting, objective reporting. A lot of it was just sensational. And
paying shooters not to shoot.
And it took away, and it literally, what it did is it cheated these young men out of their victory.
Yeah.
And so I didn't appreciate it at all.
Well, that's why we have this show.
I'm glad you said it that way, because that's really what it is. It's a cheating of these young men who are working hard and who are making changes in their lives in the right direction, and cheating them out of their victories betrays the whole thing. And it's shitty.
That's a word that could describe
I was
it,
reaching
absolutely.
for another word and I couldn't come up with one.
You guys are doing incredible. Well,
These young men are doing incredible work.
Yes.
So let's just make sure that we recognize that credit is given where credit is due. What we've done is what a parent, a community, a school district, every single structure and organization and system that has failed them throughout their life should have been doing, and we wouldn't have gotten to this place. And so what we're doing is just giving them what they were due a long time ago.
Yeah.
And because they were victimized through these processes for all of these years, and because they've dealt with that victimization in a negative way to where most folks don't deal with it that way, but this is how they ended up dealing with it. And we're helping them through that. And so the credit is theirs because they didn't have to trust us, because they've trusted people and organizations and structures all these times, have been failed, have been abandoned. And so they gave us their trust to be able to help them through a process to get their life together.
In spite of how often they've been let down.
And so it's their credit. The city of Richmond is safer because they're making great decisions.
I want to push back just a little bit because I didn't do it. John didn't do it. 300-something million other people didn't do it.
Sam and James did it.
Sam and James did it. You guys went out, they talked about, and I've got a lot of time in combat zones, and trust is giant, right? If I can't create trust, not only with the Army that I'm working with, but also with the locals, there can be no growth. You know, Rennell can try, all those guys, you guys know recidivism and all the numbers behind that stuff. They need a family around them. So yes, those guys are giant successes and they get credit for that. But you guys do too, because the work that you do has to be done as well. Because to build a family, you can't just have little brothers. You got to have uncles and, you know, you have to have the whole family has to be there. So yes, I want to celebrate their victory, but I want to celebrate your guys' victory too, because you're doing it in a place where people don't even want to go.
And don't want to help you. So,
Well, amen to that.
Yeah.
They definitely don't want to help.
So, James, you've been there, you said 2.5 years?
2.5 years.
What brought you to the program? Tell us about your path there.
My path actually started maybe 2007, 2006 when I met DeVone while I was incarcerated in San Quentin.
Okay. How did you meet DeVone while you were incarcerated?
I was doing a program called the Richmond Project in San Quentin, and DeVone was working with looking at some of the groups that was working with the Richmond Project from Richmond. And he started coming in and meeting with the guys, and they thought that I was somebody he should meet. And, you know, we started talking, build a friendship. And he told me if I ever was released that he would, and he was doing work in Richmond, that he had a job for me. And he would stay true to his word. Once I was released, I reached out to him after about 4 or 5 months, and he brought me aboard.
What happened that you connected with him there? Because it sounds like what you were doing when you met during the Richmond Project, you stood out somehow among the rest of the people in the project that made him say, hey, man, you know what? You can do some good when you come out.
I was actually the chairman of the Richmond Project, so I did a little bit of facilitating in the group.
Okay.
But it was caveated by saying, if you get out.
Yes.
I mean, that's how hard the road is for you guys to get out. There's an if.
Yes, it's one of the things is the if was because I had a life sentence. So there was no, set term to get out. And
Right.
it was a real possibility that I could have spent the rest of my life in prison. So I can definitely relate to a lot of what our young men are going through.
So you have this opportunity where you can go out and get this job. But were you interested right away, or was this something you had to think on, or what did you think?
It was definitely something I wanted to do. It felt like everything I did during my incarceration kind of pointed me towards
Yeah, it was
this
a
type of work.
continuation of
Yes,
your
definitely,
work.
definitely.
So you began working on yourself.
Exactly.
And that's really what the catalyst was. I think if I can speak for DeVone, which I'm not in the habit of doing, but I think what he saw in you was that young men who could see what you were doing could see that it was based on you working on yourself.
Yes, exactly. And it just from him coming in, and where we used to have a motto, we would say, and one of the groups I was involved in was turning liabilities into assets. And so to have somebody from, some significant person from the community reach out to you and say, you have a purpose in our community. We want you back to serve that purpose. Mm-hmm. It did a lot for me.
Sam, what about you? How did you, 8 years ago, what were you up to when you decided to join forces with DeVone?
So there was a lady that was actually working with the Office of Neighborhood Safety when it first began. But prior to that, she worked inside of San Quentin, where I met her, because I also did time in San Quentin. And when I was released, the office was just starting. It was trying to figure out its purpose. It was trying to figure out its strategy, and it was going into the community for their advice and leadership in what the community needed, which is rare. Most folks create a plan for a community, come in and implement the plan without community feedback, without community input. And then they're trying to figure out, well, why doesn't this work? So that's part of the reason why he came into San Quentin in the first place, because he's trying to go in there and figure out, like, what would have kept you out of prison? You still have connections. You got nephews, brothers, sons. What is it that they need to keep them from coming in here? That was the whole purpose of him visiting San Quentin. So he was on a fact-finding mission in his initial year or two. So they asked me to come and speak at a community gathering where I met him, and the relationship blossomed from there.
Wow.
What tools do you bring to the table to get these guys to look at you and say, okay, because you're asking them to do the impossible. You're asking them to not live this life anymore,
For me, it's patience is number one. Okay. And we often refer to, when we outreaching to new people, it's like courting. You had that one female in elementary school or junior high that you wanted, mm-hmm. and you just so patient. You did everything. You put on your best to try to impress her. Yeah. And so we do that with these young men. We go out and we treat them like, this is the most important people to us. And so it's all about, how can we offer ourselves to them, being available to them, something that they're not used to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, sometimes it's like sometimes it takes about 6 months to get these guys on board, because for them it's something out the box, just like how most people, when they hear about the program, mm-hmm. is different. We get it from both ends. Sure. The young people thinking, what is this grown man working for the city, knowing all that I've done? Why would he want me? It has to be some kind of trick, which usually every male in their lives mm-hmm. came with some kind of catch. It was somehow they got hurt or messed over in the end. And so it takes a while to build that trust. And so it's just continue to be available. And most of the time, one of us have some kind of connection with maybe an older homeboy that they trust, mm-hmm. to where they can vouch for us. Hey, that's a good dude. He was solid in prison. This is something he been doing. It's not no gimmick. It's not no catch to it. Just check it out. And so it's just constantly, and not taking it personal. We can't take, some of the kickback or some of the perceptions that people have of us. We can't take it personal. We have to understand it's a process. So,
yeah, what you guys do is so foreign. It has to be hard for them to process what you are. And there's no way you're legitimate. I mean, I know it takes me 6 months or so to establish trust with a guy who's cross-religion, cross-national. He's Pashtun, he's Iraqi, he's not me, and it takes a long time. Where, at least in my world, I can't put myself into them. I've got to focus on them and finding out what they want to do. Where are they trying to go? What are they experiencing? And it's hard for me to remember to do that, because sometimes I'll put myself in and then I'll see me reflected back when I talk to them. And I'm like, damn it. I need them to understand that I'm there for them, to build trust. And even then, when I think I have trust, the thing I've learned is I've got to test that trust. Because it's easy for a white American dude to extend trust, because all the males in my life haven't come with a catch. Yeah. So I've got a trust bank that's giant, but someone who lives in a shitty place can't extend trust. So I've got to ask for simple, low risk trust. Like, hey, I'm going to be here tomorrow. What time would you like me here? Around 2. Cool. So I show up around 2. But I don't show up at 2. That's too white guys. I'll just show up around 2. I try to mimic what they do. But it is a slow, delicate process.
Yes, definitely. And most time it's, like I say, we go meet them in the neighborhood, see them mm-hmm. out there hanging out. Maybe just a, hey, how you doing? Then it may get to a place where, hey, just like in a relationship, hey, how about lunch tomorrow?
Yeah.
proceeds from there. And it's different. Like you said, it can't be no, cookie cutter type thing. It's each individual. What do they need? What would it take to crack it with this individual? So
I think that's what's different in the program from all of the other quote unquote programs is that typically, when the program's made in a lab, they look at how do we help the greatest number of people with the, least expense or whatever their objective is. It's never that there are individuals out here. There's 17 individuals. There's 21 individuals, however many there is that you guys, have in the program enrolled at a given time who need very specific assistance, who need very specific opportunities to figure things out for themselves. This is an individual thing for each and every person. Each and every fellow has, we just talked with two and their stories had similarities, of course, but were very different. They had, needs that needed to be approached individually. You couldn't have just said, well, here's how the program works. We do this, this, and this. And then expect it to work across for everybody. Or even for most people. It needs that kind of attention. One of the things that DeVone said when we had him on was that when you have these guys who are active shooters, they are expressing themselves in the only way they know how that gets them any attention. We pay attention. And not necessarily we, but the street pays attention. The neighborhood pays attention. Their homeboys pay attention when they're being shooters. And the only way to combat that effectively is, hey, we're paying attention. You don't have to be shooting. You can be doing something for yourself, something that's going to benefit you. We'll still pay attention. Is that something that as you develop all that trust, I know that's where you eventually want to get. Is that correct?
Definitely.
And in getting there, how do you know when you've reached a point with a person where they're saying, okay, I see it now. I see that now you guys are here for me. You're not here for some ulterior motive that involves you. You really are trying to help me out. Do you have those revelations with each one of these young men? And how long does it typically take to reach that with somebody? And I know I'm asking questions. Now that I've said that every case is different, I'm asking you what's typical. But what are we looking at if you were to say what the program's about to a lay person in another city who, maybe the decision maker in adopting the program? How do you describe reaching one of these young men?
So the program is fluid, and it's an individual treatment plan. And so each individual they'll react to the treatment differently. So a lay person may not ever understand, to be completely honest, because it's been 50 years and they don't understand what's wrong with the school system. It's been 30 years and or 40 years or 200 years, depending on what historian you listen to.
Right.
They don't understand the issues with law enforcement.
Yep.
They don't see the racial bias. They don't see the issues that historically people of color have dealt with in this country. And that affects people differently. Like some young people, without even knowing it, have that ingrained in their DNA and will never ever get out of it.
Yeah.
So these young men have been taught their entire lives that they're not important. They've taught their entire lives that they're not valuable. They see it all around them. Their friends, when you're 16, 17 years old and you've buried 10 friends and 4 family members, right, and you've been shot once yourself just because you're black and living in poverty in a certain part of a community. Like, that's no fault of your own. And nobody seems to care. Like, when you go to school and you're looking and you see the flag at half staff at 9th grade and you're like, oh, what happened? And there was a law enforcement officer that lost their life in a city 150 miles away from you.
Right.
And so honor him. I get it. But what about the 10
but
friends?
You buried your cousin.
But about the 10 friends that you lost in the last 2 years,
right,
and nobody's ever honored them. And so we've been taught not to value ourselves. And so when we know they get it is when they get to a place to where they recognize that I have value as an individual. That's when we know they get it. Like, they start valuing themselves, and then they start doing things a little bit differently. Or they just snap back, everything, just took a shower, I'm clean, I'm good to go. Absolutely not, because they have some horrible habits that they've been doing for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And there are some of us who are supposedly healthy, educated, sane individuals who have horrible habits that we've had for years and years and years. And for some strange reason, we can't quit them. And so we can't expect these young men to just overnight, I get it, I have value, I need to do something differently with myself. It's difficult, but it's a struggle. And when you start seeing them struggle, then you know they get it.
Aha. And now that they understand that there is a struggle and they begin to, you got to swim upstream.
It's a beautiful
Look,
struggle.
He's paddling. He's getting it. He's kicking. When we asked Rennell about it, he said the same thing. He said, it wasn't just one thing. I didn't just click overnight and then I didn't do anything anymore. It took a while. And, he still had bad habits. He still got in trouble. And it took him a while to begin to think for himself. And so that's what you're describing is the maturity to be able to understand that you are of value and it's your value. You have to create the value. You have to do the work. It's your work. It's your penalty if you don't. But I'm glad that you identify it that way because that's exactly how Levon and Rennell described it individually in their own way when they had their epiphany, if you want to call it that, their moment of clarity when they understood.
And I'd also add that sometimes that epiphany comes in steps.
Yeah.
Like I have this epiphany of, okay, I have this value and this isn't okay. But then you justify doing things that in their opinion is lesser. Like, man, I ain't gonna never do this, but man, why is this wrong? Like, oh man, stealing ain't right, but I'll connect to the neighbor's cable. Like, why wouldn't I? Right. And so it's just like slowly they get to a place to where, okay, that's not okay. Okay, that's not okay either. And then can I do anything? Like when they get to that place, like we know we got them. Like everything can have a consequence. And one small mistake, because even though you've gotten way down here to where you're willing to just do the bare minimum when it comes to any kind of criminal activity, it still can take everything away that you've worked so hard for. And so then you realize that's not even worth it.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete Turner.
And if you like the show,
do us a favor.
Yeah, share it.
That's the biggest thing, honestly.
All your social media outlets, all your friends, let them know the ones that you like.
Yeah. I mean, we make this show for you guys. If you think it's great, say so. Say so by sharing it. Say so by putting a comment in after the show.
Also, if you go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a rating. Give us a review. If you think the show is great, please give us 5 stars and say so. And if you think the show really sucks, please give us 5 stars and say so.
Because, heck, we're listening.
That's right.
You can't be more approachable than us. We want to make the show better. If there's something that we're missing, let us know. That really is how you help us.
That's right. Tell us all about it. Thanks for listening.
And now back to the show.
And so it's slow incremental steps, but they get there. Some get there faster than others.
Yeah.
But they get there.
And again, it's like addiction and bad habits. It's the same thing. I mean, we both have 19-year-old kids, and I call them proto-adults. They're not quite there, You got to give them adult-sized problems, let them deal with things, let them flout. You don't let them drown. But neither one of them knows what they're going to be. Neither one of them knows, it's not worth it to go hook up to someone else's cable or whatever their thing is like that, because they're not supposed to know. You're supposed to have family around you to go, hey, knucklehead, just pay this $15 ticket right now
Before it turns into 100.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a rite of passage. And
Yes.
what a healthy community and what a healthy family does is they pass on learned information. Like there's mistakes that all of us have made
Right.
that we will share with those we love to try to keep them from making those same mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, if you take that away, like that alligator in the pond,
You have to start all over
it's
again.
that alligator in the pond is going to get every single every single animal that's coming to try and get a sip of water.
Yeah.
Because nobody's telling them, hey, it's dangerous over there.
Right. Don't drink from that pond.
I mean,
There's an alligator over
Come
there.
on. And so it's our responsibility. But these young folks have been given information that led them exactly where they are. And I'm not going to say that the information was given in malice. Like the folks who gave it to them, for the most part, really felt they were doing them a favor because it's the strong that survive in this jungle that they live in.
Right.
And so they were giving them the best information that they had from their own learned experiences and from the misinformation that they got. And the community has just continued to spiral down into turmoil because we don't have healthy information.
Perpetuation of
and
the
then
bad
folks who
information.
figure it out and they get it and they're like, that's not the way to live. This is unacceptable. I'm not going to let my children grow up like this. And so then we have those stars that make it out of the ghetto, but that's
And
success. They make it out of the ghetto,
Yeah.
and they don't leave a trail of breadcrumbs.
Right.
They don't show folks how to become an engineer. They don't
I'm
show folks
over here.
how to become a
I'm
teacher.
over here in Point Richmond.
Yeah, it's success. And so, like, who do I have to show me the right way when everybody who knows the right way figures the right way to do, or the right thing to do is get the hell out of here?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to sacrifice my child to y'all nonsense, and I can respect that. But somebody has to do something.
Yeah.
Because it's the mundane, it's the day-to-day things, where if you stack 100 bad decisions or 100 good decisions, you know, it makes a huge difference over the course of 2, 3, 4, 6 months. You know, you've got to be able to make even the most simple things. And how do you teach that without having a family of good, healthy information around you? I get that. Makes sense.
And so to answer a question, and then I'm sorry, John, I'll let you get in, James. To answer the question that you asked earlier, you had said, like, how do you build that trust? And our organization believes that this experience that other folks call a program, the experience of a relationship with the Office of Neighborhood Safety, is simply we never turn our backs on you. It doesn't matter what you do. There is no way that you can become ineligible for our relationship. And that's what a family does. See, you make a mistake,
Right.
most programs kick you out.
You're disqualified.
There's a condition to the love.
You don't follow the rules.
Sure.
Most programs will remove you.
Yeah.
The reason the program is there is because of the bad decisions that you are making, and yet you make that bad decision and they remove you from the opportunity to not make that bad decision anymore with the right information.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually sickening. And so they can't do anything that's going to make us turn our backs on them, because it's a relationship and we love you and we understand the trauma. We understand the adverse experiences that you've had growing up. We understand that you've been victimized. We need you to understand that you're perpetuating that victimization. In the same way it wasn't fair for you, it's not fair for anybody else that might become a victim to a decision that you've made. And just helping them through that process. These youngsters went through all the things that we discussed of before and all the things that urban America has to offer, and we all know all of those. And then you add drugs into the mix. Mm-hmm. And so now you got a 24-year-old man making very serious adult decisions with a 12, 13-year-old ability to think, because he's been smoking weed since he was 10. Like, he hasn't matured. You're talking about healthy 19-year-olds.
Right.
You're talking about your sons with healthy environments, 19 years old, high school educations,
Right.
never flunked, never failed, not child abuse, you know what I'm saying? No molestation going on, no domestic violence in the home, like none of those things.
Yeah.
And they're having issues with figuring out who I am in this world. Imagine what these young men are going through.
Give us a moment with that. Give us just a moment so our listeners can digest what you've just said. As difficult as it is for somebody in the healthiest environment to navigate young adulthood, figure themselves out, figure out their path and their meaning in the world and what it is they're to do with themselves. And then take all those factors that you mentioned and dump them on top of a person who has not only had to suffer all of those factors, often abuse, like you said, drug use from a young age, all of those things. And on top of that, the training that they've had, that they're devalued in the world. It's tough.
Can we add another rock into that backpack?
Yeah.
Rennell said, there's people trying to kill me.
And there's people trying to kill them. And let's talk about Rennell for a moment, because he's not here. We can talk about
That's
him.
right.
I'm really, because LaVon and Rennell came and shared their stories with us, I really feel like we have to honor those stories by telling them specifically because they both had great stories that had incredible obstacles that they've worked to overcome and that they work to overcome every day. But you guys were involved with both of the two of them. Is that right?
Not as much me as Sam.
Well, Sam's been around for 8 years. He's been involved with everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
So, and one of the stories that Rennell told us involved you specifically. He was sitting in a union meeting that happened. He was working for the city of Richmond, sitting in a union meeting, and he said, and this is a former gang member, one of the worst out there. You know, he was a ghetto superstar.
Yeah, a mythic. He was 6'5" and, you know, killed people with his looks. And
yeah. And now here he is sitting in a union meeting, and he said he was looking around the room and the entire gang task force happened to be in that meeting. And the only thing he could do at the time to let the air out was text you. And, you know, if anybody wants to say, okay, well, great, it's a program where they don't give up on these kids and these kids keep getting in trouble and all they do is don't give up on them. Yeah, big deal. It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And anybody who would say that is someone who's always had somebody behind them.
Right.
Yeah.
And
They just don't understand.
And so, I mean, cool, good for them. Like, I'm not going to pass judgment on those who have created a good life for themselves, who have caught the breaks, who have been born into privilege. Like, hey, good for you. What I'm asking you to do is not to pass judgment on people dealing with things that you don't understand.
Right.
And that's what we do. Like, that's who we've become. We pass judgment. We just pass judgment. Gorilla gets killed in the Cincinnati Zoo. They're passing judgment. Bad parenting.
Yep.
Bad parenting. They spoke more about that than the 69 people that got shot in Chicago over the same weekend that it happened. Because a gorilla is more important than 69 black people in Chicago. Because we passed judgment. Because those 69 black people deserved it for some strange reason.
Right.
Yeah.
A 17-year-old gets shot and goes into the hospital. He's getting treated differently than a 17-year-old who's dealing with leukemia, because the 17-year-old with leukemia got something that he didn't deserve. But obviously the 17-year-old that got shot did something to deserve it, because you're passing judgment, because you don't have an understanding of what's going on in these communities. And so I'm not going to say anything to those folks who will say, big deal, what does this mean? Because you don't live in this world and you really don't matter to it, because you haven't done anything to help it. So we don't need your naysaying to make it more difficult for us to make it better for these young men to live and for the community to be safer. What I will say is to the young men who we never give up on, it's life-saving. We never gave up on Ronnell. And I'm grateful that out of all the stories that he could have told about me, because we have a plethora of them, that's the one he chose. Because he's a knucklehead. And I'm not going to say anything on this show that I wouldn't say if he was sitting right here next to me.
No, absolutely not.
The boy is challenging, to say the least.
Yeah. He acknowledged that.
And he got there for a number of reasons. And he would know those better than me. I mean, I think I've identified a few, but he understands how he got to where he was. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of work. And when I say a lot of work, it was strenuous and challenging and time consuming. And sometimes like on the verge of breaking one's sanity to continue to get to him and help him. He was talking about his life map, and he was like, man, I was just trying to stay alive. I was just trying to stay out of jail. And in the process of that, he was able to accomplish so much. He was able to figure out who he was in 5-6 year process. But he was able to figure out who he was. He was able to get the man's 30 years old, and he's finally a legitimate driver.
Wow.
Like that's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
The man's in the union now. He's about to be a father. Like, he's looking at life differently. Instead of figuring out like, man, what am I going to do tomorrow? I ain't got no plans for next month because I don't know if I'm going to be here. Right. I don't know if I'm going to end up being in jail. I don't know if I'm going to get killed. Like, what we're doing is we're helping. And if you don't even give a damn about these young men, you don't care. What about all of the young people that are victimized by their actions? Whether they're looking at it like this is acceptable behavior, whether they're the one that caught that stray bullet coming home from basketball practice and they were on their way to college. Like, they're just walking home from their buddy's house playing video games and they're in the wrong community at the wrong time, which is their community.
Right.
So how are you at home at the wrong time? So we're trying to change a culture. So even if you don't care about the young men who's committed these crimes, at least care about the folks and the community that's victimized by them.
Right.
And so at least have that kind of compassion. That's what I would say to those who's like, big deal. Because the way we look at these young folk is like what everybody else sees is this big old ugly rock.
Mm-hmm.
What we're seeing is how we can chisel away and make it a beautiful sculpture.
Yeah.
That then everybody can see the beauty.
Because it's in there.
It's in there. We just try to get these young men to see them for what they can be. Because we see them for what they can be.
Right.
There's brilliance in these communities. There's brilliance in these young men.
Yeah.
Like had they been raised and born to that privilege, these could have been, we've lost young men that could have absolutely been involved with finding a cure to cancer.
Done great, great things.
Opening up charter schools like the one in Chicago that
Right.
every single young man that's in that school graduates. They had, I believe, 264 black males graduate. Every single senior graduated. Every single senior got accepted to a 4-year college or a 4-year university.
Yeah.
They had over $32 million worth of scholarships. And that's in urban America.
Yeah.
People have to be innovative. They have to recognize that what everybody has given us is not working for us. And we have to figure out for ourselves through the young men or through the young women, whatever, whoever you're serving, you have to figure out through them what is going to work for them. And if you give a damn about humanity, you're going to find whatever it takes to get them what they need to be successful. I don't care what they've done.
You got to let that sit there.
Yeah, man.
Shit. So
Wow.
when DeVone was on our show the first time, I wrote a little blog because I hate that headline of the program pays criminals to not commit crime, paying shooters not to shoot. And people didn't even bother to fucking read 500 words. They already had made the judgment that, it's just wrong to do this. Is it wrong to take a young man who's not had a mentor, not had a father figure, not had an uncle, and say, what are you trying to be? What issues do you have, and making a plan for him? I mean, that's not wrong to do that. But I also know this. I know that my daughter wants to be a doctor, but she doesn't study like she wants to be a doctor, right? She wants to be a nurse. And I'm like, well, you can't get a C in health and be a nurse. Now she might figure it out because, kids will turn on a dime and do something different. If I'm struggling to figure out what my daughter's going to be, how do you help these guys who can't possibly know what they want to be in most cases? How do you figure out what their real plan, what their sweet spot's going to be, so they're not building a future that is doomed to fail? Like when someone picks a career at 18 years old and they get through all the process and they're like, wait a second, I hate
this.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, exactly. I hate kids. So how do you guys guide? That's a tough problem when the kid has advantage. How do you take a kid that has hardly any advantage and help them get on the right path?
Well, our main goal is just to stop them from shooting.
Right.
So our folks, when they make that decision that I'm not firing a weapon, that's a win for us. And so everything else to that is secondary. Of course, we want them to get to the point where, we do the life map and we focus on, career smart goals for them to achieve. And if, they never get there, as long as they don't pick up a weapon and fire them at someone else, we can live
Everybody
with that.
won.
Everybody won.
Yeah. It's amazing too when you allow these young men these opportunities. If you get them not to pick up a weapon, they do quite a bit to figure it out for themselves.
And we let them make the mistakes.
Yeah.
We recognize that they don't have a lot of experiences.
Uh-huh.
Perfect example. So we take them on a trip. They're traveling. We always expose them to something. We always expose them to a museum. If we're in DC, we're going to sit with some type of congressman or congresswoman.
Mm-hmm.
Take them to Howard, like things of that. Just like get them an experience. And
Open their eyes.
Absolutely. And so on a college campus, like they're not really looking at, what the
trees,
the graduation rate is, and what's
Look
the
at all
average?
these girls
Yeah,
walking.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wonder what the average salary is after somebody graduates here. They're not considering that. They're like the beauty.
Yep.
And we're not talking about the trees.
Yeah.
And so, man, I want to go to college. Okay, you got a 9th grade education.
Yeah.
But we're not going to say, you know what, man, why don't we think of, we're like, hell yeah, you can go to college.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go to college.
The answer is yes.
And so now you're going through GED classes, and 6 months into it, you're like, well, I couldn't do this for 4 years. Okay, you figured that out on your own. We weren't going to tell you that you couldn't do it.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
But in the process, guess what?
Your job is empowerment.
You got a GED.
That's right. And they figured out, well, I can't do it. Well, you just kind of did it.
You just got a GED, though.
You just did
so
it.
you don't want to go to college now? Okay, what about a training? What about some kind of apprenticeship program? What about
Right,
this?
but you have
Let's
the
look into
momentum
this.
of achievement.
And
Nice.
what you've done is you've accomplished something that you never really thought you would ever accomplish anyway.
Right.
Because you dropped out in the 9th grade and shit, you're 21. Who the hell wants to go back to school?
Yeah. Wow.
And so we allow them to figure it out on their own. We put them in, I'm interested in this. Okay, let's throw you an internship on that. Yeah, this ain't for me. Or, oh my God, I love it. Like we had a young person who did an internship in DC for the Campaign for Youth Justice Network. He did 3 months in DC. The boy is all about public policy now because he recognizes
Wow.
how screwed up the system really is.
Yeah.
And it works for the majority of Americans, which why the majority of Americans don't find a problem with it.
Right.
And which why they can't see, well, why doesn't it work for you? Because you don't see all the little obstacles and the little catches that is meant for me. Like they literally, and I learned this today through working with a young person, a police officer can arrest you for really no reason whatsoever. Like in all honesty, in urban America, you can go to jail for absolutely no reason. And they can write any damn thing on the arrest report. And it could be absolute garbage, absolute garbage. And then they let you go because it was garbage. They just wanted to mess with you.
However,
That arrest record is on your record forever.
right.
So now I graduated high school, went to college, wanted to get into the FBI. And what do you mean? I got an arrest for a pistol because I was walking home from school. Somebody said they saw a kid with a gun. Somehow it fit my description.
Right.
I
Turns
got arrested.
out it wasn't me at all, but
and
the
nobody
arrest still
ever
occurred.
found a gun.
Right.
Nobody ever did anything.
Yeah.
They thought I tossed it. They put me in handcuffs. They took me to jail. Somehow my coach found out and was like, there was no way when that 911 call, he was still in the locker room getting dressed. I was right there, was right there. I was like, oh, okay, let him go. But now I still can't be an FBI agent. I still can't get into the military intelligence where I wanted to go.
Or you need a waiver of some kind.
But
Yeah,
the
if you
process,
can get
but the
that.
process to do that is absolutely absurd.
Right,
And
yeah.
you have to have money.
Yeah.
And now the
And so
system has
now,
worked against you.
and so now everything that I've worked for is gone. Not only have
Right.
I been victimized, right?
Right.
But now I'm victimized again.
Still victimized. Yeah.
And now I'm downgrading my possibilities of success in the future, which can be very discouraging.
Yeah.
And then what happens? One more mistake. And now I'm sitting back like I can't get work. I got 2 kids,
I'm going to go do this dumb shit.
whatever. Cause I'm hella disappointed. I don't give a damn about life anyways.
Right.
Fuck y'all. I did everything you asked me to do. I've done the
Still
best I
can't have
could.
nothing.
So fuck the world.
Yeah. Wow. Man. Somehow James saw his way past that. And I'm glad. And I'm glad you're out here doing this work with these folks, man. What kind of reward do you get? What kind of reward have you seen recently? What I'm trying to do is get you to encourage guys out there in other cities as the program travels. You achieve these results in some of the other cities that really need it. Tell us what somebody who was in your shoes might feel if they go to work in this kind of a mission in another city.
For me, the main feeling I get every day going to work is I know I have a purpose. And it's not a job like we continue to speak on. This is going to be with family. Like we were speaking in group the other day and they were saying, oh, you're going to work here for a few years and move off to another city like someone else who did, but it was something else going on. But they really impacted me. For me, they make me strive to be a better person each day because I want to be ready whenever that call comes and they need me. I want to be that person that is available and able to handle those situations the right way. And I want to be able to model exactly what a man is supposed to be because I went through the process and I know how much they pay attention. at all times. And so it could be one thing you slip up and let your guard down and they take, oh, he's not real. And so we have to be, healthy and ready for the get up and do the work each day, because these young people, they do pay attention and they have great intuition.
Yes.
They read you before you even get to them.
You can't be about bullshit.
No, you definitely can't. You have to be serious about this work. And so I get a lot of gratitude to be able to see these young men believe in me and know that I'm serious about this work and trust me the way they do. To go to a neighborhood where most people wouldn't go to and see people I'm in a city car and they waving me down, and it's just for a conversation.
Yeah.
Or just to call you and say, hey, one of them, his thing was texting every morning. Good morning, big bro.
Yeah.
And so in a way, for me, it's giving back what I didn't have. Mm-hmm. I was the oldest, no male figure in the house. And so I'm able to be that to others instead of repeating a pattern. I'm able to hopefully stop it help others stop it in their own families.
Metrics that I have that I use is I like to be Pete, right? Because the Army guys are going to call me Mr. Turner. And I'm like, that's cool, but I'm Pete. And then as they start to adopt me and I become part of the unit, then I truly become Pete. And then I listen for it with the elders too, because they'll call me, they'll want to know like what my son's name is and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm here to learn about you guys. I'm here to study you guys. Just call me Pete. And then eventually they'll do the same thing. You guys must have metrics like that. Another thing that I do is and it took me a long time to learn this, because we'd always show up and eat their food, but I would invite the elder or the government person to our chow hall and give them our food. We have ice cream and muffins and shit that they just can't ever get. And they're like, can I take some for my kids? And then, yes, fill your pockets full of this food. But me feeding them was so different from their experience. You guys must have something like that, or making food with them is even more powerful. It's like, hey, I'm going to make, like when we made you guys dinner tonight, that's part of that lesson is let's host you, you're important. Do you guys have things like that to help them see that? Cause you can slip up, but you also can buy a lot of things when you treat them like their family and they cook for each other or whatever those things are.
I mean, personally, I think we would both have our own personal beliefs and exactly what that is. For the young people I'd speak to first, I think they're the biggest metrics for them is the travel. Like, I'm trusting you enough with my life
that we're going somewhere far,
very far.
Yeah.
And like, I'm trusting that you're going to bring me back.
Not just literally very far, but somewhere where my life has never been. I'm going to go see things I have never seen. Right. I am trusting you with my new experience.
And you guys also sit them next to somebody they're not supposed to sit next to, right?
Absolutely. And so the entire experience is foreign. As foreign as it could possibly be for them. But they're trusting us enough to walk them through that process. And so I think right there is a turning point in the relationship.
Yeah.
But for me, I know that the relationship is shifting when they're calling on me for things that they would be calling, that in my mind, that you would be calling on your big homie, you would be calling on your family. If your pops was there, you would be asking him these questions.
Yeah.
Like, you're trusting me enough to give you advice in very serious and very detrimental times in your life. And you're asking me for that.
Right.
And so I recognize that I have a responsibility. Like, what you've done is you've placed your trust in me. And I have to do the best that I can not to break that trust. I have to do the best that I can to give you the honest, most healthiest advice or information that I can in the situation.
Like what?
It could be as simple. It could literally be as simple as a young man has a job. He has another job offer. He has a job offer and he has an interview. This happened a few months back. So he wants to work. Like, bottom line, man, I need to work.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a for sure thing. So I'm just going to go into this for sure thing, but that's a job. The interview that's coming up in 2 weeks is a career opportunity.
Right.
And so now he's like, what should I do? I'm saying you can't give up a for sure thing, but what you need to do is go into that for sure thing and let them know that the interview is coming up in 2 weeks. So you're going to miss a half a day, like right when you start, and there's a possibility that you will get that job and you'd be giving them 2 weeks notice. Right. And what he was going to do is just not go to the interview. he ended up taking the job, going on the interview, and then also getting this other job. This making about 40% more an hour. And each year he gets a good 6,
and
7.
it's a career.
And it's a career.
Yeah.
But then it could be as bad as my girl's pregnant. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
It could be as bad as I really did something stupid and I'm thinking about doing this as a response.
Yeah.
Like I've done something stupid. And then there was a response to my stupidity.
And now
And now I'm considering like responding to that in this way, which is absolutely unhealthy.
Right.
Getting them to understand like, yeah, he was hella wrong. And it's hard for you to live in the streets, like look at your partners in the face,
Somebody
walk down
wronged
the
you that
community
bad. Yeah.
and not respond. But let's take it back. Had you not done this initial in the first place, you wouldn't have felt that disrespect. So take some responsibility on that. And you're right. Like something has to be done. So what's going to be done? Because I know how you want to respond, how you always respond, how everybody responds. Like this is how y'all respond. Let me set up a conversation with him. Let's have that conversation. Y'all need to talk. Y'all have to talk, or it will lead to this.
Right.
Like there's a no-brainer on that. And then be able to accept some rough words, to be able to accept a little bit of disrespect, and got to accept, like, I put y'all together. Like, I got to keep you safe. I got to be there. I got to get in the middle of some shit if something happens.
Yeah.
And then I got to be able to, like, this hasn't happened to me anyways. I'm not going to speak for all the staff. But, like, if y'all just get to fighting, like, I might have to sit back and let that go for a little bit.
Right.
Like, damn.
Yeah. You got to get it out.
And then, like, get in there, but if anything happens, you know, like, get in there and then, okay.
That's
we cool?
enough.
Are we cool?
Yeah.
You know, because men are aggressive. Men have testosterone. Men have been fighting forever.
That's what we're built to do.
Like every damn high school, elementary school, boys club, YMCA, park in this country, possibly in this world, has had young boys, adolescent boys, and men
Anytime.
fighting in it
Swinging.
forever.
Yeah.
Any gathering of enough young men, there's somebody's going to be a fight.
And so sometimes it's needed.
Yeah.
It's healthy.
Right.
Like when we grew up, some of our best friends is the ones we fought with the
Right.
most.
That's it. You know, when you give them the opportunity of, instead of shooting, man, I got to punch that dude in the mouth. And you know what? Maybe he
might win.
He might.
But he gonna know, he gonna respect me
and
afterwards.
yes. And then at the end of it, hey man, you know what?
You hit hella
done.
hard. Now I don't want to
It's
do this
done.
no more.
Right. I have my cousin, Eric, his sister, my other cousin, Tina. She is the mother of Shane Mosley Jr.
Sugar Shay.
Yeah. Little Shug was born out of wedlock. So I had to ask my cousin Eric, so wait a minute, let me get this straight. Your little sister got pregnant by a dude. You had to go have the, yo man, you got my little sister pregnant talk
With Sugar Shay.
with Shane Mosley.
Yeah. You
know
can't show
what he
no
said?
fear.
You know what he said? Yes, I did. And I said, how did that go? And he said, man, I had to say it. I knew I was going to, if it came down to it, I knew what was going to happen. I wasn't going to win that fight, but I had to go say it. And sometimes that's what it comes down to. If we can keep these young men from shooting each other, they can go say what they have to say. And sometimes, and thankfully, this is the happy ending that happened in that circumstance, was Shane said, yeah, man, I'm going to do right. I'm going to raise that baby. I'm trying to do right by your sister. And whether it works out or not, I'm not sure, but I'm not going to desert that baby. So in the end, he didn't have to say, well, Shane, I got to punch you in the mouth, because nobody wants to be in that situation. But because they didn't have to resort to shooting each other, they came to an amicable solution everybody could live with, and everybody lived.
Imagine what the world would look like today. And Pete, I think you could actually appreciate this more than any of us at this table. Imagine if it was just Bush and Saddam who had to fight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of the thousands of
Sure.
lost soldiers that we've lost, countless Iraqis.
Yeah.
Imagine if we, because I mean, in all honesty, what we've taught these young people is the strongest is the one who shows the most aggression.
Yeah.
Through history. Like the Japanese come and shoot up Pearl Harbor. Okay, let's destroy 2 entire cities to let them know that we're not accepting that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. This is what we've shown young people. This is what America is built on.
Right.
Death and violence. And then we're sitting back and we've gotten comfy in our, you know what I'm saying, suburban homes, and the schools are safe and the parks are clean and everybody's working and the economy's great. And we've forgotten about this little subset of our citizens, which nobody seems to want to recognize as citizens, because we don't get the same adjectives describing us in the same situations that any other citizen in this country is described as.
Yeah.
And wonder why we feel the way we feel, wonder why we act the way we act.
Yep.
And then judge us based on some circumstances that, whether you know it or not, you absolutely were involved in creating for us, because silence is consent.
Yeah.
And so I just like to challenge people to like look inside themselves and like try to figure out why you feel a certain way. The way you feel, and let's just put it out there, like urban America, Black America, young Black men that's living in poverty and dire straits. Like, why do you feel a certain way about them? Like, why did they feel a certain way about Trayvon?
Sure. Yeah.
A young man minding his business, just black in a hoodie, it's a death sentence. Like, why do you feel the way you feel about us? And I can flip that coin, because
why do you not feel anything?
There you go there. Because I get it. Like, we got a different swag, and it's gotten a little bit more aggressive. It's gotten a little bit more rough. It's gotten a little bit more rowdy in the last couple of decades. And I get it. Like, pants sagging. We have for the most part, sadly, we have a lack of respect for elders. And so but what elder has showed me how to respect them? Like, what elder has garnered my respect?
We are talking about in the worst parts of the community where you would say, oh, everybody's pants are sagging and everybody doesn't have any respect. And if you identify those traits permeating through a community, it's a community that doesn't have any elders. You look around, there are no elders there. And the system that would take the place of the elder, or that is designed to give some sort of a backdrop, has failed.
What we've learned is, me personally, we live in the children of the corn. Like, never thought, I seen the movie as a kid.
Yeah.
It was like, how stupid is this, right? Because there's no way I was going to say something to some 30-year-old or one of my neighbors, you know what I'm saying, without getting my ass whooped. Like, if they'd whoop my ass, my mama would whoop my ass for embarrassing them out there in the streets. Like, how the hell did we get to a place to where adults are scared of children? Like, so what we've done, some like it, some hate it, is me personally, I probably do this more than others, and I get clowned by the other staff sometimes because the big thing is mind your own business. Well, anybody in my community is my business. That's just the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And so, but then I also have to respect and accept the backlash from somebody who really feels like I should have minded my goddamn business.
Right.
And so I'm going to say something to a child that's doing wrong. I'm going to. And I don't care if your mama's standing right next to you. Because if you ain't saying something, somebody needs to say something.
Right.
And then I will accept that backlash from the mother. And I will be as respectful as possible, but express to her somebody needed to say it. Because there's no way that you're going to have a room full of adults that's going to see a 3-year-old playing with a paper clip, then all of a sudden go to a wall socket and about to put it in and just watch. Ooh, wonder what's going to happen. Like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But yet we're sitting here watching communities play with their lives.
The equivalent
knowing
of that.
exactly what the hell's about to happen, and sit there and say, wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it is my business.
I agree, man. I think it is aligned, right? Sometimes you got to get some business so you don't have other people's business. But you're right, though. There's times where you've got to stand up, and especially in a community where there aren't enough fathers, aren't enough, there's too many kids left to their own devices. Single mom, that's urban or suburban, doesn't matter. Being a single mom is hard. And sometimes you just don't bother with all the fights because there's too many damn fights. You spend your whole life fighting instead of raising your kid. And I've seen it where the single mom is treated disrespectfully by their kid. And, I'm not going to bite my tongue about that, because the mom can't fight all that stuff. So she needs someone like you, like me, whatever, to say, hey, you wouldn't want me talking to your mom that way. You don't got to be an asshole about it, but that kid does need to be corrected a little bit, I saw a kid on a train. I was in Europe traveling, a little Italian kid, and he was getting more and more obstinate towards his mom. And I don't speak much Italian, not enough to even know what's going on. But I know when a kid is being disrespectful to his mom. And he's the little kid. He's like being like 4 or 5. And he smacked his mom in the face. So I turned around and I looked at him and I gave him like the dad look. And then he looked like he was going to smack his mom again. So then I just stood up. And then he had to recognize that other people were watching. Like, 'cause you know, boys are. They're all id. What I see, I want to do. And then he realized, oh, there's 40 other people on this train watching me smack my mom in the face. And then he checked himself up. Was it my business to get in that little kid's business? Yeah, it was. You can't smack your mom around me because that's not okay.
And it's as simple as that. And in communities, it's not a community anymore.
Right.
It's just my house on this block.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I think you've said that's it. You just rang the chord. It's not a community anymore because when we were coming up, I mean, I better not catch a whooping from my neighbor across the street because then I had to go home and catch one. And it's not like that anymore in a lot of places.
We're trying to create that.
That's it. That's what, if you want to boil down the opposite neighborhood safety, it's that, hey, we're all in this together and everything is our business and everything has to be everybody's business. So we can get all these young men through with some semblance of opportunity, some semblance of a path, and some semblance of a purpose.
The other day, John and I were doing some work, and we saw a kid of someone that we know driving entirely too fast in a residential neighborhood. And, you know, that's none of my business, but it is my business.
It's your business if your dog runs out there and gets hit. It's your business if your neighbor's child dies.
I guarantee you it would be my business. If it was my daughter, I would want some other parent to say, I saw your daughter going about 60 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone.
If those two young men in Stanford was minding their own business,
Man.
What would have happened to that unconscious woman?
Yeah.
Hey, man, we've had you guys for quite a while. It's getting late, and we appreciate all the time that you've spent with us. And never mind all the time you spent with us. As much as we appreciate that, we appreciate the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
It's important. It's crucial that we get the message out about the work. It's crucial that we get the message out that somebody still cares about these young men who can't seem to catch a break, and that you guys are just around to keep them somewhere near the rails so that when they can catch a break, they can recognize it, they can do something with it. So we appreciate that. I want to close with a comment from my friend Sean Adams. He's an author and sports commentator. He mentioned Muhammad Ali. In Muhammad Ali having passed recently, all of a sudden is everybody's hero. And the point that he made was, you know, if Muhammad Ali didn't have Parkinson's disease and he was a young man right now, he'd be saying a lot of things to a lot of people that they wouldn't appreciate. He'd be saying things controversial. He'd be expressing himself about race. He'd be expressing himself about freedom of religion. He'd be expressing himself about too many young men going off and fighting wars that are not theirs. And he'd be expressing himself loudly and using his platform. And a lot of the people right now who are saying Muhammad Ali was the greatest would be saying a different tune if he was alive and vibrant and vocal right now. But I'm going to say I'm glad that you guys are alive and vibrant and vocal right now. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.